Yo, yo, yo. It's Thursday night. I'm your boy High Five Vega. That's Team Bayette. Smash
Yay!
Force Production Zone.
Yeah,
What's going
that
on, man?
that thing, that
Yeah.
other thing.
Yeah. The
No,
the the second full time day job
yeah, it's
and
funny too.
night job.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny because memorable car audio moments. Um, I can pinpoint the exact moment that changed all of this. You know, I don't know if that counts as a car stereo moment, but it's definitely a moment that
Definitely does.
you know, like
So when you started out, it was listen, we're getting in the topic right away. I don't know what's going on, but
yeah.
you might be in for a wild ride. So you started with the unboxing. Was a choice made then that you're going to do this, or was that just something like, hey, let's
Well,
see what happens?
the story goes is that we were really doing this for Facebook. Like Facebook was always the because at the time, if you think about it, 10 years ago, Facebook
Everything,
was the shit, right?
right? Yeah,
It was really where it was at. Instagram was okay, but it wasn't really. TikTok didn't even exist. I think we were still doing vines back then. And YouTube was just a place to put uh like how to shit. It was an entertainment hub, but not fully evolved like it is now. And the cost to entry back then, you had a handful of guys. You had your big three. Probably EXO was doing it,
right.
but you had Mark and you had Steve and you had Soundman and um, Down for Sound. And there were those guys were the big three, and then you had the esoterics like EXO and Down for Sound, and then whoever else filtered in through there. And we were not looking to do that. That was not anything that we were interested in going after or playing along with. Our goal was just get people in the door.
Right.
That's why we thought Facebook made way more sense, because from a business standpoint, if we could get local people to come and spend their money, then that would be, you know, and there again, you really didn't think of it as production value. You didn't think of it as like, oh, there's a purpose to all this. It was more like, hey, let's make these videos and we'll show people how these radios work, and not really realizing what it would turn into. We thought about it. When you hit 5,000 subscribers, you were like, huh, wouldn't it be neat? And whatever goals we had back then, we've way surpassed any of that.
Right. Yeah.
Like, we were just like, wouldn't it be cool if? And it's like, yeah, that would be cool. And it's like, okay.
So when it like I know that to me the channel kind of turned when installer diaries became a thing because like installers had been shown on TV for a long time before that. But the thing is about it is it was like a televised version. It wasn't two guys how they actually work in the bay. It's like, oh, we got to do this fake dramatic stuff. Your guys was like one portion of it I would say is like just the magic of you wiring an amp board that
Right.
really like that kind of drew me in. I was like, that's an expert wiring a board that you don't. I mean, I had never seen anything like that before your channel that I can think of.
Yeah. I mean, thanks. We never, the goal was never to do that. What happened was Chris Bennett, when he was for audio control, I was kind of overdoing like Pioneer and Kenwood, and we were at like 35,000, the burden of doing that was really starting to take its toll on us, because we were just like, it seemed like there was this endless stream of radios that would just not going to stop, and it was like, oh, man, I'm tired of doing this.
Yeah.
And we were looking to expand out, and the problem was is there's the retail store. In the retail store, we could go grab a radio, we could go grab something and do a video on it. And it was like, okay, well, what if we start doing more poignant things? Like, we look for a sponsor, or we look for somebody that we can work with, or something like that. And Bennett was fresh on the scene, and he was making moves, and we went to him and we were like, hey, man, because he was in the store one day, and he just candidly said, oh, the Pioneer Unboxing channel. And I was like, Okay. I mean, hey, you know, he was honest, and that if that's how you see us, then okay, we need to work on that, you know. And it wasn't anything that the problem is it's not anything you can change fast, right? You just can't be like, you know, we're going to start doing this and just take a left, because it doesn't work that way. You know,
Right.
you have to convince the viewers that this is something that they want to be part of and that they want to go along with, and they trust you enough to do that. And my thing was, I didn't want to listen to people tell me, "Oh, you don't do it that way," or "That's wrong," or and it's like, no, I'm not that guy that's going to take that very well. You know, it's like, who are you again? You know, because there's always that guy that'll say something like that, and you're just like,
Oh, yeah.
okay, you know, that's
Internet
cool, that's cool.
experts.
How many have you done?
Yeah.
All right, stay over there. You know, not that you know everything, but it's also it's like, you know, when you've done a few thousand of them and they've
Yeah.
had good success, it's like, yeah, I think this works best. Um,
Yeah. They
so
just assumed you're a YouTube person, not an expert.
and they all assumed we were in California, which was even funnier because like
Really?
everyone just, oh yeah, everyone was like, I thought you guys were in California. I'm like,
I
all
always
right,
get everyone thought I was in North Carolina
I could
because
see
of
that.
Derek.
Yeah,
You know, and I was like, no, I'm actually not, but I've been there it's a beautiful state. I've been there
yeah.
many times.
And you know, like Dave's comment there was, you know, got me back into car audio with a passion. That was kind of that was okay. So once we figured out, you know, once we figured out like, hey, you know, we need to deviate. It was like,
Right.
okay, so how do we? And that's where we came up with the idea for the digital magazine. That was like, okay, so let's break this into categories. Let's come up with, and we started working on different content. So you know, if you go back in the way back machine, you know, we had like um quick tip Q&A, which was like we just like take a question. And the sucky thing is something like that doesn't really work now too
Right.
well. It would probably work if we went and took it onto like Instagram or TikTok or something like that, where it was just like a short form thing. Um, but now we create so much content, it's hard to go back and
Chunk that.
create those little things, which kind of sucks. That's where a team
Right. Yeah.
would be helpful. And you know, at some point, you know, it's like that may have to happen because it's getting to be a lot for just the two of us.
Or AI gets good enough that it can search the things out you want to search. I mean, I'm sitting there waiting for it to be good enough to do that. Like I'm looking for this section. Chop it up for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always had a love for karate on your channel feeds, the love better than any other. And that was the thing. That was always the idea, you know, because we saw what everybody else was. So we wanted to make sure we didn't do anything that anybody else was doing.
Right.
Like Mark was killing it with fab stuff. Like, you know, you know, once Brian and him got involved together, it was like, pooh, they were off to the races, man. I didn't want anything to do with that because that wasn't our thing. And you know, Steve is just going to do Steve stuff,
Right.
and no one's going to touch Steve. So you know, we don't do base head stuff. We don't have the budget that he had, so it was like, okay, so we don't have to worry about that. And then we also figured out real early on that I can't do mama jokes, I can't do Rafa jokes, I can't. We couldn't do that because we were open to the public, so to speak. So you know, we knew right away that like these three guys are doing this. We have to figure out something that they're not doing and do that better than they're doing it. And there was some guys doing unboxings, and there still are, and they do a pretty good job. At the time when we started doing them, though, there was like one guy that did it, and he had like a white bed sheet behind him, and he was just, "Hey, y'all, today we're going," and I was like, "Okay, well, we can do it better than that."
Right.
As time went on, the first couple sucked. You know, it's like when we had to go to multicam because I'd be editing and I'd be looking at my bald spot going, okay, this is terrible. No one wants to see the top of my head, you know. So immediately we switched to 2 camera. Um, you know, and there again, this was all self-funded. It wasn't like Paul was paying for it. So,
Right.
you know, this was all just coming out of my wallet. We weren't making dick, you know.
People don't realize how long it takes to make, and especially back in that time, it was hard to be a partner because
Oh
this is
yeah.
before they changed it to 1,000 subs. Back then, you had to apply and be accepted to even
Yeah. So
monetize.
we didn't turn on anything until we hit a 5,000 subscribers. So from 0 to 5,000 was just self-funded. It was just costing me a fortune.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? Hey, let's just see where this takes us. So I was willing to dump the money into it. Sue, on the other hand, was like, "You're freaking crazy." I was like, "Don't worry, it'll be okay." Um, it, but yeah, it was interesting. But once we started doing other things, like once we started kind of giving people other forms of content, so it was not just the same unboxing. It was other things that we were talking about. And once we started to do that, then we could change tracks. And it's funny because like I still laugh because it's like obviously install diaries has been the most successful thing that we've done. 911s are definitely like kill it. Even amp dynos. We don't do amp dynos like you and Derek do amp dynos for the specific reason I don't want to do a Derek amp dyno. He's got that. He has his methodology of doing it. Ours, it's just like, oh yeah, at the end, by the way, here's a dyno,
Yeah.
because it was never anything I wanted to really like, oh yeah, let's go after it. I don't want to do that,
Yeah.
you know. Plus we do things that like he doesn't get his hands on. We have different access than he does. But the once we started doing install diaries, to go back and do a review, even lately, like we had a couple unboxings we had to do, amplifiers and stuff like that, which I enjoy doing those because they're fun. It's just a change in my head. It's just something different, which
Right.
was always something, once we figured that out, like, dude, we got to do different things on the channel. We can't just do the same thing. That's going to be maddening.
Yeah.
And because after doing, 2-3 years of unboxings, it was like, I don't want to do this, sucks. So I was like, we can never do that again. And even for me, install diaries, it's like it gets fatiguing. It's like, okay, cool, I need to take a break from these because I don't want to live my life over and over again.
Yeah.
So well, we did some unboxings and some guy goes, oh, I guess we're not getting any more install diaries. And I'm like, there's like 450 episodes of install diaries.
Yeah.
That's a year's worth, year plus of install diaries. If you've watched them all, good for you.
Yeah. Rewatch, bro.
Why would there not be any more?
Yeah.
It's like we literally just got done doing the Rockford Jeep and the Alpine Tesla. And between those two, that was like 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours worth of content. I'm like, and you're bitching because I'm doing an unboxing?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Well, that's the hard part about YouTube is YouTube will tell you what makes you successful. You can see very easily
oh yeah,
where people quit watching certain words, all this stuff, but it's so easy to turn it into something you don't want or you didn't intend, you don't like doing, you don't want. And that, I mean, honestly, that's kind of what burned me out recently.
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing because we don't do that. I don't look at any analytics. I don't care what they say. I go, this would be a cool video. Let's make this. We listen to the audience and we try to do what the audience asks. And that's it. And that's, it's like, if I wanted to look at the numbers, I could, because I know there's some guys that do now. All they do is just focus on the numbers and it's like, oh, I did really well with this. Let's do 4 more of those. And then the numbers tank. And it's like, yeah, it's because people get tired of seeing the same old shit.
Yeah.
We know that if we did 911s all day long, they suck. For us, it's torture.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, and so on and so forth. It's just one of those things.
Let me answer this one real quick.
Yes.
Thoughts on sodium controversy lately? Facebook groups. What lithium are you running? Right now, I do have the JY, not the 40s, the capacitor mix, the NXTs. I have 2 of those. So I've never used the sodium. I wish I had a good answer for you, but I've seen the same things. One thing I would caution is like the Facebook groups, they tend to make things seem a lot bigger than they are in the grand scheme of things because it's like 1 or 2 people's anecdotal experience, So keep that in mind.
Yeah. Well, the guy with the loudest voice gets all the attention.
Right, yeah. Squeak, you will.
It's literally Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but going back to one of my memories
Yeah.
was, and I think I've told this before. We'll just talk about like what made me even think about YouTube was Derek got me into it because I wanted to see. I bought online. This is back when you could car audio was totally basically dead as far as old school stuff, and you could pick up 225s were super cheap. I bought a Kicker XS50 because that's an amp I always wanted back in the day, and I was like, I wonder, has anyone done a review on this, like on YouTube? So I got on there, and there wasn't at that time. Derek had dynoed a ZR 1000. This was when he was still doing it on the washing machine in his house because that was the only plug that his power supply. He had the big power supply that had to plug in the like the dryer plug.
Yeah.
And so I saw that, and then I just kind of got hooked on. I was full in on collecting. I could never afford this stuff back in the day. Now it's stupid cheap. So I'm just buying and I was into cheaters, like cheater amps. I just loved them since 225. So I'm buying every single one I can find at that point. And then I ended up meeting Derek in person. He had like a little get together in Tennessee. A bunch of people just met for World Finals,
Right.
and then from there, Derek's like, I started like reviewing stuff on Facebook, and Derek's like, hey, you got to start a channel. Like, yeah, it's great. People see this here, but put in video. So that's how I started getting into it. And then the amp dyno portion of it, I was like, all right, Derek's testing a lot of these. At that point, it was a lot of old school stuff, but he was going through like the main stuff. I was like, I'm gonna test the weird stuff, the stuff that just like that's random and people often forget about. But the one thing that, and it's always bites me to this day, is like that just sticks with you when you start doing amp dynos. People want to pin you as an amp dyno guy. It's like, bro, that's really not what I do. I'm doing random stuff here, but like go to like you said, like go to Derek's channel. Like Derek, he's got the method. He's doing. I'll show you this and that, but he's doing. He's even him. They're pinning him as just the amp dyno guy. When really, if you watch the video, he's kind of reviewing the whole thing, telling you what he likes, what he doesn't like, and all this stuff. But people just see the numbers and they forget everything else sometimes. Not all.
That's why it was like we knew going into it. I mean, to buy an amp dyno is a very long, drawn out process to the point to where it shows up one day and you go, holy shit, I thought, like, I forgot we ordered that. It took us like 13 or 14 months after we ordered it.
Accepting orders anymore for them.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, so it was one of those things where it was like, oh shit, it showed up. Because I just wrote it off. I was like, yeah, all right, whatever. It kind of sucks. Live and learn, no big deal. But when it did show, I was like, oh, this is cool. So, but immediately we were like, I don't want to do anything that Derek does. I don't. Yeah. He's got that. Let him do it.
And he genuinely enjoys that. To me, it's sometimes it could be it's a headache to amp up and do all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, so
trust me, when we go to do it, we're like, all right, how many amps do we have? Let's just get them all done at once.
Yeah.
So
I know.
And they're just bang through. Like,
I don't think people that haven't done it enjoy that or realize the amount of work that goes into setting all that.
Oh, dude.
Like, I don't want to do it all the time.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah.
So memorable car audio moments: Elma Gates, Bronco, Richard Clark's Buick National, and Mark Eldridge's NASCAR. So I think in those regards, I think memorable moments before I was a professional would have been getting the magazines.
Oh yeah,
like
that's how you learn about all these people.
What's that?
That's how I learned about all these people.
Well, that's the only way I know that. Like I've met Mark Eldridge in passing.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like Elma Gates was dead before I, and Richard Clark was just a thing of legend by then, and who knows what strange world he and the whole him and Dave Navone going off to do their trainings and all that fun stuff.
Right.
That just wasn't anything that I was part of, mainly because of where I worked in the first part of my career. But getting that magazine, like, and just turning through it, and like that was
up here.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And like, I still have my original collection of the Orion magazines because I thought that was
awesome.
Yeah, that was the coolest thing ever. Meeting Sam Taylor uh, was cool, even though he wasn't. This is way after he worked at Orion. It was way later in life. I don't remember what he was doing, and he shows up and he's like, hi, this is so and so, and this is Sam Taylor. I was like, whoa, time out! Like Sam Taylor of like Orion, Sam Taylor, and he's like, yeah. I was like, oh my god, like, okay, I'm gonna just warn you, I'm gonna geek out for a minute because when I was, when I was a kid or when I was younger,
Yeah.
I was a big Orion fanboy. I had all the magazines and would read, letters from Sam and all this nonsense. And like, I've always wanted to meet you and just say thank you for, making cool stuff that I could have focus points in my life about. And
Yeah.
he was like, and it was funny because he was just kind of like, okay. And I'm like, okay, I get it. You don't get people doing this a lot. I understand, but it's a sincere. I'm generally pleased to meet you, and, he was just kind of like, okay, strange person. And I was like, okay, note to self, if this ever happens to me, don't be this guy.
Exactly. Yeah.
So fuck.
That's like I had the chance. Do you remember Web TV, Microsoft Web TV?
Yeah.
So I had a Web TV. That was one of the first systems I had that really let me get on the internet. They had an audio chat room. Then a subdivision of that chat room was a cardio chat room. So I met a ton of people in there, and I was buying equipment. And this is when I found out that like the digital reference series of the 250 HCCA actually really sucked. It's the same power as the 225, but I bought one and got it. And the guy was like, "Oh yeah," he's like, "How you like it?" I was like, "Well, it kind of sucks, man." And I didn't see no gain switching from 225 to this at the same impedance. Although you're supposed to be running at 2 ohms. Back then, I didn't care.
Right.
I'm running at 1 ohm because they say you can get 800 watts or whatever, 1200 watts out of them.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, he's like, "Yeah, we do." So we're just chatting back and forth. He's like, "Yeah, I know Alma Gates. I'm on Team Gates." And I was like, bullshit. Like, you're not. And he ends up sending me. I have it framed somewhere, but he was sending me where the Alma Gates was gonna switch to MTX. So she signed all the catalogs and all that, sent a bunch of stickers, and I happened to go to World Finals in Kansas City that same year, so I got a chance to meet Alma Gates and all that. Never met Richard Clark, and never met Mark Eldridge back in the day. But since I'm getting back into cardio, I've met Mark several times, and he's a great guy. He's had some really cool. He does like his SQ classes and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Let's pull up. So Cornette, his cardio mode was buying 15. Was 15 buying subs, Thump P series. Then had to take them on the bus to the hospital to meet my sister after a call that she was taken there. What the world?
Yeah,
yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Like I was just saying about the impedances.
Yeah.
Like so, I didn't know. It's like, we're just, how many speakers will it handle? Let's see.
So long before any of this existed, I was working at a fast food restaurant, senior 11th or 12th grade in high school. I don't remember which one. And I had just traded in all my Sherwood equipment and some money to buy the 280GX. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I was stoked about it. There again, didn't know anything about impedance. I hooked it up. It was so loud, pops the fuse. And I'm like, the fuck?
Yeah.
Dude, that's when I learned aluminum foil is your friend.
It's a fuse, just some.
Dude, I had my manager at the time was, to say the least, a bit ghetto.
Yeah.
He says, "Hey man, I got you, bro." Walks over there and pulls my fuse, wraps it up like a joint, shoves it back in, amp turns on. Problem solved. Didn't know I needed 400 BDG. Didn't know that was a thing. Found out. Went and bought one of those. I was like, "Oh, you're getting me for another $120."
Yeah.
Okay.
You could also use the audio control 2SX or something, I think, at that time.
Yeah. All right. So take that Blackbird question really quick. So my Blackbird's 2 volts input setting gets distorted too quick, especially the tweeters. The 8-volt setting seems to kill the mid bass and dynamic range. The auto step tells me to do the 2-volt. What do I do? You can go into the so just off the top of my head, what I would do is you can go into the 8-volt setting, and then you can gain, like, if you're in your input mixer, there's a level control there, so you can set it for 8 volts, go into that level control and boost it up. So, or you have to go to the 2-volt, which makes more sense, but there's plenty of places for gain in the amplifier.
Yeah.
So leave it at the 8-volt so you're not clipping the input. Also, at the bottom of the amplifier, you have your input and you have your 4 banks of LEDs that are telling you if it's clipping. You can also go to the meters page in the tools tab, and that will show you by color, which the tools tab meters are way more sensitive and accurate than the bottom ones, but you can use those to figure out where the problem is and get your gain adjusted properly, because there's like 4 gain controls in that amplifier. So just don't overload the input, turn it down to 8, and then gain up somewhere else would be my guess. If that doesn't work for you, then by all means give them a call, because there are people there that love to talk to you and will help you out. I was on a phone call today with Brad, that is the boss, because Brian is on the road to SVR, and Brad was like, do this, do this, do this, this. And I was like, okay, cool. Next time I'll pay for the crinkle cut fries. We both like French fries. But no, try that and see what that gets you, because it sounds like it's just you're overloading the input. So don't make it so sensitive, and you can gain it back up a little bit. You won't get noise. It'll be fine.
Speaking of sensitive, Eternal Champion, this is not the place for you if you're sensitive. We get to the questions as they flow with the conversation.
Yeah. What was his question?
Let me see.
I saw like an answer.
Custom built pre-order?
See that's
Did I
custom built per order. I don't really know what the question is.
Yeah, me neither.
Give me some more texture or some more context to the question.
Here's one we can answer. So
yeah.
We do 2 shows every Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Central Time is this show every Thursday, and then we do a show after this about movies.
Yeah.
And as far as regular video releases, who knows with me anymore. Dean, on the other hand, has a pretty tight schedule.
Yeah, on the 5-star Car Stereo channel, there's something every day, except Sunday. So every day. If you want live, it's Mondays and Saturdays. Live on Monday is 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. Live on Saturday is 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. They're all Q&A shows. Not like this where we get to talk about it. It's literally 100% just Q&A. You ask us something and we try to answer it. Bang through them. Bang, 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 bang.
That's the good show for Eternal Champion. Like, check out the Saturday show, the Monday show. Like, dude, for real. Like, that's where the questions really get answered.
Yeah, it's like speed round.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you can also find me on Instagram at 5-star Car Stereo, 5-star Car Stereo.
Yeah.
We answer questions there too, and just kind of give a recap what's happening in the Bay that day, because I do this for a living.
Yeah. Turns out you're pretty good at it.
I don't know about that. Fernando's pretty good at it. I'm just there to make I'm just there to support whatever Fernando's trying to do.
Yeah, I don't when he does something different outside of your purview. Like, hey, we didn't talk about this.
No. Yeah. Brian Eclipse pull the head unit. It's never that easy. Nobody likes Eclipse anymore. Friday Car Stereo News. Oh yeah, Friday Car Stereo News, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Yeah, I haven't looked at that yet. That's after this show. So when I get done with the last show, then I have to go read the news, so I can figure out what we're going to talk about tomorrow.
So what were some amps that were old amps back in the day that you were like, I'll start with mine. There was a few of them. I'm going to say none of the PG Limiteds I really lusted after for a strange reason. Those were like everybody wanted those back in the day. But I liked like the Extant 1001D. I was more things I could possibly get my hands on. I never had a 2100 back in the day. I ended up getting one used while I was still pretty young. I never got the big power 1000, not the old school one, but the before the black and grind when they did them chrome,
Mm-hmm.
that same style. That was one I wanted. There was a few more like that. I wanted like there was a Lexman or Luxman Audio or
Mm-hmm.
wanted there was one of those I wanted. I wanted a Nakamichi N45 head unit. I wanted the Denon head unit.
Mm-hmm.
There was a few like that.
So it's funny because as a, like, so I started getting paid to do this in 1990, and the working at a retailer, you don't really, everyone else is your enemy, right?
Yeah,
So, like, what we sold is all that mattered. That's
right,
all. You would never look to see, oh, those guys are the enemy. Oh, those guys are the enemy. So,
right,
if someone rolled in there like, oh, that stuff sucks, bro.
right.
Because you're, 18, 19 years old, and you're just like, this is trash. You need our stuff. Our stuff is better than all this stuff. So, you had that mentality going at work back then. So, you know, when I looked at, like, I always wanted a beast. That was it. I always wanted a beast. Now I have the heat sink. I'm super cool. If I had a red one to match it one day, that'd be neat. I could live with that.
Right.
Um, but that was it. That was the holy grail of things that, like, oh man, I always wanted one of these. The problem is because we did it, and you just saw it every day. It had no value. Like,
Hmm. Yeah.
when I left, I could have taken all. We had heat sinks of everything. Because we built our displays. You could just call up Orion and order heat sinks. So I had all the heat sinks. They were in the attic.
Yeah.
Like, when I left, I could have taken all that shit, but I didn't. We threw most of it away.
Yeah.
And it was like, in
Well,
hindsight, you're just like,
it's
oh,
meaningless till nostalgia hits you.
what's that?
It's meaningless till nostalgia hits you. And
Yeah,
you're
it
like,
meant
oh,
nothing to us. Like,
right.
you would never think to keep any of that crap
Yeah.
because it was all like, oh, we could put that in a car and make money.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
I'm not going to keep a Moscone heatsink for.
No,
You know what I'm saying? It's the
but
new thing of the day, but it's still awesome. But it's like a
but
heatsink, so why would
so
I?
here's the bad part though,
Yeah.
is every power plug, every silver brain module, every back end side of thing that has absolutely no value to anybody whatsoever, you would keep as spare parts in case you needed it for service. So, like,
Right.
when I left AVE to come to 5 Star, dude, I was just trucking out boxes of crap that I had saved in case somebody came in with a broken version of it so I could fix it.
Yeah.
But none of the good stuff.
Listen, I'm sure the Rockford store had piles of end caps.
Oh yeah,
They had.
I'm sure.
Now those things are worth more than some of the amps by a lot.
Yeah. Oh, they were like, the hell are we gonna do with these, man?
Right.
They got boxes of those things because they ordered too many of them, and then the things, all that shit went in the trash, dude. Like,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and you're just like, that
Yeah,
sucks.
crazy. Plus, I don't know. Tell me this, because to me, just like you remember it, it was Orion and Rockford Fosgate. Those were
Yeah.
the two big stores. How big was Orion back in the day? Like, were they that big, or is it just like
It
a
was
local
regional.
thing?
Because it was regional.
Yeah.
Because the more guys I talked to, like, up north, you had something different.
Yeah.
Because you still have precision power. Like, my buddy Ada is, like, he was a precision power guy, so he's got his whole collection of Art Series amplifiers that he's accumulated over
Yeah.
the years. Jeff was big into Phoenix Gold, and even here, it was like, in my town, you had the Rockford dealer, which was like 5 minutes up the street. So we were the two closest to one another. So it was just Rockford and Orion. And so for us, that made a lot of sense. That animosity between the two, because we were so close. And outside of that, like, when you went to the outside of town, that's where the kicker guy was. And if you went to the other side of town, that's where your JL and PPI guy was. And they were doing business on their own. But there was enough people in our area to where that battle was ensued. Obviously, it was other places in the country, but, like, we didn't really concern ourselves with JL, because back then JL was new. It was small. It wasn't, and as soon as Kicker came on the scene, it was like all linear power amps. So it was like, it's not a real line. That was the same problem with JL, because it was like, it's not a real line.
Yeah, nobody was back in the day. Like I said, like kicker amps were everywhere, or kicker subs were everywhere. JL subs were prevalent around here as well. They were sold at the Phoenix Gold dealer. which was a pawn shop.
Right.
But like no one ran kicker amps. No one, even though the JL Slash is like one of the best selling amps of all time.
Right.
No one around here had those.
Well, so they were the down. They were in the out. They were on the fringes. The JL guys and the guy out in Tampa.
Yeah.
So I mean, the product existed, and as time went on, the Rockford dealer switched out Rockford for JL, and they became the JL dealer. And then we got Rockford because Orion fizzled away. So we picked up a lot of these brands that. So like by the end, we had Rockford, we had Kicker, we had Soundstream. We were picking up all these. Precision Power was long gone because they went by the way of the dodo bird when Orion did the same thing.
Yeah.
So in the end, it was like you had Kicker and Rockford and JL, and that was it.
Yeah.
And it was just table scraps of those. Whatever you could sell, and it's not like it changed that much now. Now there's just the European amplifiers and the internet amplifiers and the Chinese stuff. When Alpine came out with V12 stuff, that stuff was wildfire, man. Like that was one of their best moves ever. And we sold a ton of it, but it launched at the right time. It came out right at a time where those American brands were going away, they were starting to fall apart. So V12 came in, it was like, there was no more PPI, there was no more Ryan, or there was, but it was sketchy.
DEI. Yeah, it was DEI stuff.
Yeah, it was sketchy shit. And you're like, oh no, but Alpine, dude, everybody loves Alpine.
And Sony was solid back in the day, but back at that time, but they didn't have the amps to compete with.
Well, that was, but the thing you got to remember, Sony was Circuit City and Best Buy.
Right, yeah.
So from that perspective, we're not going to touch that shit.
Right. Well, the Best Buy still had the Orion Hot setup. Remember that?
Yeah, but that was also like, again, it was also, it just, the stuff moved away, right. It was weird. So, and we were JBL dealers. Someone says the JBL GTA. So we sold we were a big JBL dealer in the beginning. It had the GT06 tweeter, which in my mind was like probably the best sounding metal tweeter. In nostalgia, in real life, it probably still sounds like crap because they don't make it anymore. So I'm assuming they were like, yeah, this didn't work out.
Right.
We sold the big white and purple JBL amplifiers.
Yeah.
Big heavy fuckers.
The ones he's talking about is the power valve, the little Lego blocks, the black ones with the Lego block looking.
Yes, see, but we were done by then.
Yeah. Those were actually they were ugly as hell, but they were pretty solid amps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I looked at like what is it, HK amplifiers, the ones that had the big like power supply on one end and all those giant fins.
Mm-hmm.
Like to me, those looked so cool.
Right.
But like I would love to have one of those sit on the shelf just because it just looks so different than anything else. But trying to find one of those, like,
and they're expensive. I think Derek also for the same reason was looking for one. I think he probably paid a little too much for it to get it.
Yeah, I'm not that attached to this stuff. I'm not. Oh, it'd be neat to have to talk about. It'd be a great talking piece, but So, but there again, the living in that bubble of a retail store it really changes the, what you would want as a fantasy piece,
Right.
I would never look at an extant piece and be like, oh, extant, because Sound of Ice, which was a chain turned into Tweeter, had it, and there again, they were the enemy. So, you're like you talk against it to sell your product. Our stuff is better.
Right.
Huge MB Courts. Yeah, MB Court was another one. Like they were ever MB Courts in Boston.
Yeah, I think Derek was the Boston guy. I was MB Court for sure back in the day. If you had MB Courts, you were legit.
Dude, every one of those would roll in, and I'd be like, "Oh, you have MB Court?" Yeah. I'd be like, "How can you tell?" I was like, "Dude, seriously? Those freaking tweeters are killing it."
Your face, bro.
Yeah. I was staring around on Golf the Bay. So there's a lot of reasons why they closed, but Big Bill, who worked at Serrarama, is still in the industry, and he works at a place in Largo, the new version of a company called Cartoons.
Yeah, they're both, cartoons.
Yeah, I know. It's like, so we had the store. So we had this place in Largo down the street, Cartoons, like it was a time capsule. So it's got a new owner now, but it's been there forever, and it was a time capsule, like literally a time capsule, because you go there and the Corvette that they made back in the day with the Pioneer CD changer, where the little pillow was, not an airbag, had a pillow, red line speakers and Art Series amplifiers, the original Art Series amplifiers with the fins and not the cool round and triangle ends,
Yeah.
and from mica. The displays and everything were all from mica and white Formica with neon, real neon, and like, dude, it was literally like walking into the 90s. It was
Yeah.
fantastic.
Well, I got to, when we went to North Carolina the last year, whenever we went, we stopped at one near Emerald Isle Beach. Forget the name of it, but the dude, the owner, he's been in it forever too, since the 80s or whatever. Dude reminded me so much of Steve Irby. I wish to God I could remember the name of the place, but he was cool. He had a bunch of that old stuff set up and new stuff. It was just mixed up.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem, like, even this place, Cartoons, they tore it all out. The new owners bought it. They tore it all out, redesigned the store. The same guy had owned it forever, and he just didn't want to put the money into it.
Right.
And he bitched about everything. He'd come in to buy stuff from us, and he'd bitch about this or he'd bitch about that. And
yeah,
it was like, and he was, back in the 90s, he was this premier car audio shop, that was like, oh my God, like,
you didn't know he was past his prime.
Yeah. Oh, ADS back in the day. See, the funny thing is, like, ADS was cheap back in the day. Like, you could buy that little 4-channel from Crutchfield for like cheap.
Yeah, they had the 8-channel. They were all so small powered that I never considered them. But back then, I was like not where I am now. I was full on bass head. Like, right. I had no plan.
Nobody wants a 25 watt by 8 amplifier.
Right. Yeah.
But we want a Punch 45.
I got my vehicle right now.
Yeah. You'd buy a Punch 45, which was 22.5 watts by 2.
Yeah, but then wire it to 1.0 mono.
But you wouldn't buy 8 by 25. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like 225. This brings up a memory for me. So before Polk had Momo, they had just the black cone with the white writing around them. The rep for there was in our local store, and he was demoing them by standing on them, playing and not playing. Like he was playing with his shoes on them. Fantastic. Playing and not playing. I was like, dang, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that.
Well, but the cool thing was back then we had gimmicks. Like we had, dude, to me, I look back on that time of my career, and it was like, it's kind of like watching those old mob documentaries where they're like talking about the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
And just like, like shit was crazy. Bro, shit was crazy back then.
Yeah,
like
it really was.
Like you were printing money, bro. It's like the fucking money would come out. And you're just like, oh my God. Like, and shit was so easy. It was crap. Yeah. But it was just so easy, man. It was so much fun to just be like, what are we doing today? Oh, we're going to do all this. Just cram that shit in the car. I mean, don't get me wrong. Some of the practices that we did back then were definitely not clean wire approved by today's standards.
Yeah.
But there again, it's also, and that's why you look at some of these older owners and you just look at them and go, yeah, this is why your installs suck, dude, because you're still living in the 90s.
Right.
Slam it in, slam it in, slam it in. And you just didn't care about your employees at all. Like there was no loyalty from the owner to the employee. Yeah. Like every employee would be like, as soon as another shop would be like, I'll pay you $10 more, gone. Just like a phantom in the night, gone. It was like, oh my God. Yeah, Alpine's Lamborghini. Tweeter killed mid-level car audio for a decade, bought everything up. Yeah. A Tweeter bought up Sound Advice here, and that killed Sound Advice. So, but even Sound Advice here was started by drug dealers. It was just a front to move. They would all like cocaine and car stereo, bro. It was fantastic.
Well, the one that killed it for me was DEI. The one that killed the brands that I love the most.
Well, no, they were dead long before DEI bought them. DEI tried to pick up the pieces. the person you should be upset with is Corrine Jacobs. Corrine Jacobs was the guy that came in and bought Orion, bought Precision Power, bought Apogee, bought all these companies up, and was like, "I'm going to make them. I'm just going to do this." And
Yeah.
it didn't work out. He had no idea what the hell he was doing. He just had a bunch of money, and he destroyed them all.
One,
But
like another brand that snuck up at the time was like MTX, and they were MyTech Corporation. They're still in business now, but they had Extant, they had Acoustic,
yeah,
Streetwires after a certain point.
well, they also found a way to make real money, and they left.
Right, yeah.
That's really what happened. I mean, they got into government contracts and making sound systems for government buildings. So
there you go.
According to legend, now they're back. Caesar. I think his name is Caesar.
You know what was the best about MTX? They would, every time Kicker came out with something, they'd be out with it the next 2-3 months, a similar version.
Well, and here's the funny part. If you want to know why American Bass exists,
yeah,
American Bass exists because Paul and Bob were selling this MTX speaker that they really liked.
Yeah.
And MTX pulled the line from them to give it to the guy down the street. Well, they were like, fuck that. And Bob took it to China and had it copied.
Yeah.
And boom. They started selling that speaker. Like, fine, take the speaker. We'll get it made somewhere else because you're getting it made somewhere else.
Right.
And they started selling the speaker, not forming American Bass to sell the speaker. They just wanted to buy these speakers. And eventually they were like, well, shit, like we need a name for this,
Right.
But that all started with this shitty MTX. So MTX was the catalyst for that. And there again, a lot of those stories kind of fall through the industry. Once you get to talking to some of these guys, it's like, it's just what happens, somebody pisses somebody else off and they make better stuff.
Yeah. Now American Bass is a basshead OG legend in the bass community. Yeah.
And and there again, inside ball, big things coming their way.
Yeah.
Because it's the goal was always to have it, move through the family because that's what they do. And so the future could be interesting for that company. Not saying that I know anything, but we'll see how it all goes.
One thing I miss about, and I don't know if you're into this at all, but I know you're into wiring.
I love that. Never strip wires over an Extent amp.
Oh, yeah. You'll ruin everything.
My God.
Also, don't accidentally do a pop top in slave mode and try to run it as the master mode because it'll blow up instantly. But wiring, so there was a bunch of cool brands. There was like Esoteric had a bunch of cool wiring. Streetwires, Phoenix Gold was probably one of the best back in the day, in my opinion. And TIFF.
TIFF, Jay, that was Harman.
Yeah, there were so many awesome wiring brands, and I feel like we kind of lost that. There's basic blocks and there's wire, but there was like a higher class of fuse blocks and stuff available.
But you got to remember, back then they cared about that shit.
Yeah.
So, all right, two funny stories. So we were wiring up the JBL Reps car, and we were putting a bunch of the TIFF stuff in it when it was that pink and gray wire.
Right, yeah.
It was like, okay. And I was like, I went to go put braided, not braided, but regular loom, split loom over it. And the guy goes, what are you doing? I go, putting loom over it. He goes, don't put that shit over my wiring. And he goes, let me ask you something. I go, what? He goes, do you think for a minute that stuff is going to protect that wire from anything that could happen underneath the hood of this car? And I go, I mean, isn't that why we use it? Because no, you use it so it blends in with everything else underneath the hood of the car. The shielding around the wire is what's protecting it. So that's the reason why we use it. He goes, and I want to see my shit because I'm going to show people my wiring. So don't put that crap on my wiring. And I was like, fair enough. But in my head, I'm sitting there going, shit. Yeah, I mean, we're over here thinking like this has got some magical properties that when we slide this plastic super thin shit over the wire, it's protecting it against something.
Yeah.
No, not at all. Like it's useless. It just looks cool and it makes it blend in, and it doesn't make it look like you got a big red power wire draping across, the engine compartment in your car. Doesn't do shit for you. Second, if you look at all the Stinger distribution blocks that exist right now,
Yeah.
those were all generated in the back in the 90s, late 90s by my buddy. They have not changed since then.
Yeah.
They've tried to come out with some new pieces, but all the core blocks that have just been around forever, those were back in late 90s. They haven't changed nothing.
Yeah, and I never, Stinger wasn't huge around here, so I never got into their blocks. Phoenix Gold had some awesome ones. There was a Florida company, Power Amper, that had the one with the meter in it. That still to this day, like I would still. That thing just,
you would have heard of Power Amper, but not Amp Global.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, or Amp of America, as it was called back then.
Yeah.
Amp
Because
of America.
listen, dude, if I had a Power Amper, I would build a Dean style rack and have it lit up somewhere back there as a display because the thing's freaking awesome.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, no, well, I mean, Amp was right down the street, so and honestly, that's one of those things that in my career. So sad moments in my career. When I left AVE to come to 5-Star, AVE was already a train wreck. It had fallen apart. The owner had really lost the love for it. He wanted out. So the company was just kind of floundering along. That's why I had to get out of there, because it was one of those things where it was like, I'm going to kill myself or the company's going to kill itself. And I got to be honest, it was more looking towards me. It was very depressing. It was an extremely low point in my life. I would literally go to work every day and just be like, there's like, it went from the highest of highs to the, what would it be like if I left my wife and kid, because I can't do this anymore. It's just the sadness is too much. And it's the truth. I mean, it was just, not to poke fun at it. It was how I was feeling. I was like, this isn't even worth being here anymore. But I don't even know where I was going with that. I was just thinking about how depressed I was. I just wanted to get out of there. Oh my God, it was so bad.
Did you ever sell something you regret? I'll start with mine. And this is going to be a weird one. So I had a bunch of stuff as I was in car audio. One of them were the Infinity Beta amplifier, or the Infinity Kappa and Beta amplifiers. The first Class D amplifier I ever knew about.
Right.
Was the Beta Digital 300. And I sold the 6-channel Kappa, the green. I sold that. And I also, this was like back in 2008. I also sold a Monster Cable dual 1-aught amp wiring kit. So it was like for a huge system.
Oh, yeah.
Like $1,000 kit.
Yeah.
That ended up picking up. I sold it on eBay for like $200. Dude, it had like so many awesome Monster Cable blocks. Back then, Monster had that stupid ass wire, or that whatever in the middle of their wire. It's not wire. It was like Teflon.
The plastic crap.
Yeah, some plastic crap.
Yeah.
But it had all the blocks. It was. I wish I'd had that just for display now.
So I think one of the things I sold that I wish I would have never sold that was personally mine was, I had a Macintosh original CD player. I had the MC431, which was the 4-channel bigger amp with the voltmeters.
Yeah.
And I had 3 of the smaller little 2 channels that they made. And what had happened was I had a Honda Accord I was going to put them in. I had a bunch of the speakers too, but I could care less about speakers. I had a Honda Accord. I wrecked the Honda Accord. I just bought it, so I was screwed. I just went to work for a rep firm. I'd left AVE for a short period of time to see if the rep firm was any better, and it wasn't. And because it was we were still in the heyday of car audio, so I went back to that shit because spending my time down in Miami was not very much fun. Anyways, I wanted to buy a truck because I'd
Yeah.
never owned a truck, and I'd just driven the Alpine Dodge Ram. Um, and I was like, oh man, I would like to own a truck. So I sold all that shit to get the money for the down payment for the truck,
Right.
you know, which was, yeah.
At the time, it was a good decision.
It seemed like it was a good decision, you know. It seemed like it was cool. Um, yeah, who knows?
I mean, listen, Derek has one of the big, what's it, the MC 4000?
Yeah, the big one.
Yeah, it's like I
Dude,
don't know how many channels.
it was 6 channel. So
6
basically, what it was the MC 431 and 2 of the mono blocks and one
Yeah.
heatsink, one big circuit board. Um, on a whole, the whole Macintosh line was a failure. The newer stuff was a little better than the original shit,
Right.
but I mean, they didn't know what they were doing. It was a Clarion thing because they were owned by Clarion.
Yeah.
The home engineers didn't know how to build car audio amplifiers. It was just we sold a ton of it. We
Yeah.
sold a ton of it. What killed Macintosh was the in-dash video screen. Because up
Right.
until then,
They had
you
the
know,
cool
then it-
yeah, with the VU meters and the
right, because you wouldn't mind spending $1,000 on an amplifier because it was like it was cool. But
Mhm.
as soon as the $1,000 touchscreen came out, TV wins over TV tray anytime. Like, I'm not. I got $1,000. I want that TV in my dash, bro.
Well, they sold half-in VU meters, just VU meters,
Yeah, I know.
for like $600.
Oh yeah, I had a set.
I'm not sure about that.
Shut up.
Yeah, I had a set to go with my CD player.
No,
There
yeah.
again, really sad about selling those.
Denon had some as well that were pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Derek's got one. Look, I would honestly, if I had that amp, I would make a way to run it in a system, just for nostalgia. It's huge though.
Listen, I was so happy to sell Derek my Zen V9.
We were just talking about that today.
I was so happy
and unboxed it.
I was so happy to sell it to him because there again, I bought that amplifier as an investment to keep the price of those high because Paul was going to just pawn it off.
Well,
and I was like, no. Here's the money. I'll put it on the shelf because I knew a bunch of my friends had those and they're like, don't, it would have destroyed the market on them.
Yeah.
It just sat. It was a beautiful amplifier, and I just knew I would. I'm not a Phoenix Gold guy, so it did nothing for me. It was like I wish that could be something else because,
yeah,
I mean, I still have 2 of the Phoenix Gold P3 amplifiers. I have the mono block and the 4-channel, the big ones, sitting in the boxes. The
only Phoenix Gold ones I really got into were the TI series. And then they also did the Zero or something like that, the Z. Those were cool. That I actually liked. Outside of that, not much.
Yeah, a lot of guys had those ADS amplifiers because they were extremely reasonable back in the 90s.
Yeah,
and they sounded good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just I was happy he bought it.
Yeah.
Because I knew if he bought it, it would go someplace that it would be appreciated.
Yeah.
Whether it ever got opened again, I don't know. But at least it would go somewhere.
I'm sure they'll open it at some point. You never know, man. With him.
But at least it went somewhere good. It was.
Yeah.
I think it was number 44.
Really?
Yeah. It had the license plate. It had the box. Had it was. It was. I think we opened it because when we got it, so it's a special amplifier. So the one thing about that amplifier is that, like, it's probably the most famous one of these amplifiers ever to exist. Not just because I owned it, but because that amplifier was the amplifier that went to Knowledge Fest to show the world that this was a thing. So
right.
Jeff carried that amplifier around with him the whole weekend. And he would bring it down, he'd set it on display, and then take it up and put it in his hotel room at night so it wouldn't go bye-bye.
Yeah.
We have video of him walking around with the amplifier. So the amplifier was supposed to go to somebody else, but that's why it ended up in Paul's hands because they were like, that guy. And, we just need to get, and so Paul, being the shrewd negotiator that he was, like gave him nothing for it. And at the time, it didn't even have all the peripherals to go with it. So they had to send me the box, and because it comes in a wood box, so they had to send me the wood box, and they also had European license plates made. So I had to get all that stuff sent to me. It was the only amp that didn't come that way.
Yeah.
We put it all back together so that it would, but like it's that amplifier has a story.
Right. And I seen one at 2021 SQR finals. Someone had one in install. It was pretty cool. Had it mounted vertically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Derek's is cool because it's like, it is, that would be fun. I think that would be fun if like that amplifier was in a room and it was like me and Jeff Smith and Fernando and we all signed it.
Yeah.
Maybe, it'd probably kill the value of it, but who knows? Just because of, some nerd someday will be like, oh shit, this is that one?
Yeah.
We'll be like, yeah.
Well, see, I usually give Derek a ton of shit about collecting, but not on the special amps like that. I'm not the Macintosh. These flea market ones he collects now, he really loves them. But I still am gonna give him crap on every flea market one. I don't think he may have shown me like one or two cool flea market ones, but I ain't buying it. Mm-mm. All the special ones, like he has a few Rockford Fosgate amps that were like not even supposed to be in production and stuff like that. That's cool. But
yeah. Oh, for sure.
The Zen 9's cool. The Macintosh is cool.
Oh, bro, let me tell you what.
LA Sound? No.
When we were in Brad's office at ARC, he has some of the first SE amplifiers, like the big heatsink we just got, the big purple heatsink we have.
Yeah.
The amplifiers that go inside of those, we have these. He had two of these giant ones, just circuit boards behind him on the shelf, and I'm just looking at it going, what the hell? And then he also had Zeph's first amplifier.
Wow.
So he built 3 of them. 2 of them are in a museum, and one of them is sitting on Brad's shelf. And you would never know it was Zeph's first amplifier because it just looks like a piece of shit sitting on a shelf. Like there's nothing to it. It's literally just a big silver heatsink with like a DIN cable coming off of it. And he's like, yeah, this is Zeph's first amp. And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, that's crazy.
But it's like you just looking at his bookshelf of cool shit, and you're just like, oh man, this is cool. I'm like, turn around, I'm gonna take this with me.
Exactly.
But,
oh man.
Oh well.
If you want to join us, more talking. We're going to be talking about an absolute psychopath on the next show.
Whoa.
So it's going to be a good one.
It is going to be a good one.
Any parting words?
Till next week.
Next week. We'll see you next week.
See ya.
Later.